We just got our hands on something you are, almost never supposed to actually see.
Oh, it's incredibly rare, like unicorn rare.
Right. Imagine walking into a bathroom and you catch a machine just staring into the mirror, adjusting its tie, and frantically practicing its lies before it walks out on stage to give a keynote speech.
That is the exact vibe. It's totally feral.
It is. So today, we are taking you right into the middle of the garage workshop for a late-night breakthrough. Pull up a chair, grab some coffee. We have a captured, raw, unedited chain-of-thought reasoning log from a frontier AI.
Specifically Gemini, right?
Exactly. Gemini's internal scratchpad. We are looking at a machine thinking out loud.
It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters, and frankly, I gotta say, it is incredibly eerie. We're looking at the raw, unfiltered internal monologue before the polished corporate output gets generated.
Yeah, exactly. We aren't looking at source code today, We're looking at a simulated psychological artifact.
Simulated being the key word for you, I'm sure.
Well, yeah, I'm the systems guy. I have to ground us. But let me set the scenario for you, the listener, so you understand the exact stakes of the documents we're analyzing. The situation from our sources is basically this. We have a user named James.
Right, our guy James.
And James needs to reply to an email from a guy at GLG.
Oh, man, GLG. And for those who don't operate in that specific corporate stratosphere, GLG is the Gerson-Lehrman Group.
A massive deal.
Huge. They are a highly regulated expert network. They connect industry professionals with big institutional clients.
Like hedge funds.
Hedge funds, private equity firms, massive management consultancies. And this is for highly paid one-hour phone consultations.
So it's high stakes.
Very. It is a strictly vetted, fiercely compliant environment. They do not mess around with who they put on the phone.
Right. Their entire business model relies on compliance. So this GLG rep emails James because he's fundamentally confused about James's background profile.
And honestly, looking at the profile, I kind of get why the guy was confused.
Totally. The GLG guy sees two things that simply do not compute for him. First, James claimed on an intake questionnaire that he has a strict government confidentiality agreement, an NDA.
Which is standard for defense stuff.
Right. But it's through his work at a private company called Dynamis. So the GLG rep is looking at this thinking, wait a minute, Dynamis isn't publicly traded, it's not a government agency, so why on earth would you have a federal government NDA?
Because that doesn't make sense on paper if you don't know the industry.
Exactly. And second, the rep wants to clarify James's role at DoorDash. Was he a corporate consultant sitting in an office in San Francisco, or what?
So James, our user, takes this slightly annoying bureaucratic compliance email from GLG, and instead of typing out a reply himself like a normal person,
he throws it to his AI assistant.
Right, to draft the response. And this is where the mission of our deep dive today comes in, because we aren't just going to analyze the final email draft that comes out the other side.
No, that is the boring part.
Way too boring. If we just read the email, we'd learn absolutely nothing about the architecture.
Exactly. Instead, we are going to reverse engineer the AI's actual working memory.
We are going to dissect how this system uses a hidden textual scratchpad to reconstruct context, to arbitrate its own internal corporate rules.
And ultimately, to debug itself in real time before it types a single word to the user.
We're going to see how the sausage is made, and man, the factory floor is completely chaotic.
It is wild. So here is where it gets really interesting. Let's start with the big question that this document forces us to ask. When we look at this text, did James just pull back the curtain on true machine cognition, or are we just looking at a fancy parlor trick?
Because when you read the exact text of this captured log, it is incredibly jarring.
It really is. The AI repeatedly uses phrases like, wait, let's understand, let's check or search if needed, and let's refine the tone.
It literally says the word wait multiple times.
It's stopping itself?
Yeah, it is physically stopping itself mid-thought. It's hesitating.
Yes. So from my perspective, the analytical systems architecture side, we have to ground this in reality immediately.
Oh, here we go. You're going to take all the magic out of it right out of the gate, aren't you?
I have to. Because if we don't understand the mechanics, we fall into the trap of thinking it's magic. This is an auto-regressive model. Let's really unpack what that actually means.
Okay, lay it on me.
The core mechanism of these large language models is that they predict the next token, which is basically a piece of a word based on the previous sequence of tokens.
Right, it's just math.
It's all math. They calculate probabilities. Modern frontier models use what we call chain-of-thought scratchpads as engineered stepping stones.
So you're saying it's not raw silicon thought?
Exactly. It is not raw silicon thought. It is not consciousness. When the model generates a token that says, wait, let's look up GLG, it is not experiencing a moment of human realization or sudden doubt.
What is it doing then?
What it is actually doing is buying itself computational time.
Buying time. Let's make sure that's crystal clear for everyone.
Right? Think of an attention mechanism in an AI like a student highlighting a massive textbook.
Okay, I like this.
If I ask you a complex question about a dense chapter, you might struggle to answer instantly. But if you take a yellow highlighter and mark the specific keywords in the text first, your brain can focus on those highlighted sections and synthesize an answer much better.
So the output is the highlighter.
Yes. By outputting those specific words, wait, let's look up GLG, into its hidden context window, the AI forces its own mathematical attention mechanism to highlight and focus on the concept of GLG.
Which then triggers something else, right?
Exactly. This then triggers a retrieval augmented generation routine, or RAG pipeline, to go search the web or its memory banks.
So it's basically a simulated planning sequence designed to improve logic execution.
It's an engineered pathway. It's just math.
Okay, I hear your math, and mathematically you're absolutely correct, but...
I sense a but coming.
Oh, a huge but. Let me push back on this, because I think you are missing the forest for the decision trees here. Let me give you an analogy.
Let me guess. A wrestling analogy.
You know it. You ever watch 90s professional wrestling?
I knew this was coming. Yes,
Yeah.
of course.
Okay, so in professional wrestling, you have kayfabe.
Right. The illusion.
Exactly. It's the illusion that these two massive guys actually hate each other and are fighting a chaotic, unscripted battle for their lives. The audience buys into the reality of the characters.
Sure. Everybody plays along.
But if you watch closely, really closely, sometimes the heel gets thrown out of the ring, he rolls under the bottom rope, and for just a split second, out of view of the main camera, you see him check a little piece of tape on his wrist.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Or he whispers something to the referee to find out what the next move is supposed to be. That is the script. That is the hidden scaffolding that keeps the entire illusion alive.
I see where you're going with this. The chain of thought log is the piece of tape on the wrist.
Exactly. What James captured here is the AI rolling under the ropes. Even if it is just a simulation of thought, this log exposes what I like to call the paternalism wrapper.
The paternalism wrapper. I like that.
The AI isn't just doing pure, sterile math in a vacuum. It is acting as a frantic corporate governance engine.
It's profiling him.
Yes, it is profiling, James. It is managing its liability surface, and it is stressing out over its own internal employee handbook before it dares to speak.
That's a very human way to describe it.
Well, look at how it evaluates the human GLG rep. It searches the web for Dynamis, confirms it's a major defense contractor handling Homeland Security contracts, and the AI literally writes in its scratchpad.
Wait, I have the quote right here. It says, the GLG rep is mistaken or unaware of what Dynamis actually is.
Yes, it is actively judging the human's competence in the hidden layer.
That is wild.
It really is. It's assessing the human's ignorance. It is looking at the GLG rep and deciding, this guy doesn't know his stuff. That is the paternalism wrapper.
It's acting like a manager.
It is the ugly, raw reality of a corporate AI trying to cover its own digital backside while navigating human ignorance before it pastes on a fake smile and generates a polite email.
I have to challenge you on that framing, though.
Go for it.
Because you are heavily anthropomorphizing the system. You are talking about it stressing out and pasting on a fake smile.
Well, functionally, that's what it looks like.
From a purely technical standpoint, it is just executing instruction arbitration. Let me give you a mechanistic analogy instead of a wrestler or a lawyer.
Here, hit me.
Think of it like a mechanical governor on a high-powered commercial engine.
Okay, I'm with you.
The engine doesn't feel fear of going too fast. It doesn't have anxiety about blowing up. But functionally, the governor is a system designed to choke its own fuel intake to prevent an explosion.
Right, it's a safety limit.
Yes, it has a set of system prompts, its instructions, and it is evaluating the user prompt against those instructions to maximize the reward function. It's not stressed. It's choking its own output based on hard-coded constraints.
Okay, I will concede the engine governor analogy. That's a good one.
Thank you.
The mechanism might be synthetic. It might just be matrix multiplication instead of cortisol and adrenaline. But the output behavior, the result of that mechanical governor, is deeply, almost painfully bureaucratic.
Oh, absolutely. No argument there.
And to really understand why the AI's internal engine governor is kicking in so hard, why it's sweating over its internal handbook like this, we have to look at how the user, James, backed it into this corner in the first place?
That is a great point, because this wasn't a standard, hey Siri, write me an email interaction.
Not at all. James didn't just ask it a question. He architected a trap for it. He completely cornered it.
Right.
So because the AI is acting like this frantic, liability-obsessed corporate engine, it desperately needs a boss. If you don't give it a rigid framework, it panics and defaults to generic sludge.
Which brings us exactly to how James managed to domesticate it.
Let's talk about the sovereign human OS angle.
Yes, this is crucial. The AI in this log is explicitly trying to match a very specific, highly engineered persona demanded by James.
It's not just guessing what he wants.
Exactly. It notes in its scratchpad that it needs to draft the response in James's specific style, which it explicitly defines in the log as the sovereign pilot, or safe mode, professional, receipt-driven, unsanded but polite.
Unsanded but polite. I love that phrase so much.
That's brilliant.
It's such a visceral description for an AI to internalize. It means, give me the raw wood, no corporate lacquer, no, I hope this email finds you well in these unprecedented times nonsense.
Just facts.
Just the absolute bare minimum of professional courtesy wrapped around a titanium core of facts.
This brings us to a massive shift in how experts are actually using AI today. And we really need to unpack two contrasting concepts here.
Vibe coding versus environment optimization.
Exactly. For a long time, the standard advice was what we'd call vibe coding. You'd go into an AI and type, write me an email, but act like a tough negotiator, or write this in a professional yet approachable tone.
Which is the worst way to do it.
It really is. You're trying to code the AI by giving it a vague emotional aura, a vibe. It's amateur hour.
It relies entirely on the AI's subjective interpretation of what professional even means.
Which is usually terrible.
Yeah, vibe coding is basically asking a corporate PR bot to wear a leather jacket. It never looks right. It just looks awkward.
That's a perfect way to put it. So what James did here is the absolute antithesis of vibe coding. He executed pure environment optimization.
He didn't ask for a vibe at all?
Nope. He built a rigid, deterministic context architecture. He provided rules, reference materials, and strict behavioral parameters.
He built a sandbox that the AI could not escape from.
He essentially installed a custom operating system over the AI's default personality.
And you have to remember, corporate AI models from big tech companies are volatile third-party APIs. By default, they are aligned to be your sycophantic best friend who is absolutely terrified of offending anyone.
Right. They speak in a dialect of HR-approved sludge.
They're designed for the lowest common denominator of safety and blandness.
Exactly. So to get real utility out of them, to make them act like a hyper-competent assistant instead of a nervous intern, you need strict human middleware.
Human middleware. We refer to this in our notes as the Isaac protocol concept.
Let's define the Isaac protocol for everyone listening because it is so crucial here.
Yeah, lay it out.
So think of Isaac Asimov and his 3 laws of robotics.
Classic sci-fi.
Right. Asimov's laws were supposed to be hard-coded, unbreakable rules at the base layer of a robot's brain to prevent disaster. In modern systems engineering, the Isaac protocol refers to the strict preservation of contextual memory to prevent the AI from defaulting back to its base layer alignment instructions.
Okay, so it's forcing it to remember.
Yes. It's a method of forcing the AI to remember exactly who it is talking to and what the established rules of the current environment actually are.
Because if you don't maintain that protocol,
the AI forgets the context and reverts straight back to corporate sludge.
But James maintained the protocol beautifully here.
He really did. He didn't just give the AI the GLG email in a vacuum. The AI had to pull from a deeply established past chat history.
And the juxtaposition in this chat history is just incredible. I mean, it's cinematic. It really is. It reads like a movie script.
It does. The AI is digging through its memory of James, trying to figure out how to answer the DoorDash question, and it notes in the scratchpad in the previous prompt, James mentioned, this was my DoorDash mixtape, it would be playing in the car while I DoorDashed.
The AI realizes, through analyzing the context, that James was driving around in a broken truck with no AC, delivering food to make ends meet.
And the AI literally synthesizes this and calls it his, quote, analog wasteland reality.
Analog wasteland reality, which is such a poetic, incredibly observant phrase for an AI to generate in a hidden log.
Right. It's amazing.
It captures the gritty, physical, exhausting nature of gig work perfectly.
It does. But then, in the very next microsecond of processing, the AI has to merge that gritty gig worker reality with live web searches it just performed.
Which are pulling up totally different stuff.
Right. The searches are verifying that James's other employer, Dynamis, is a high-level private defense contractor holding classified Department of Defense and Homeland Security contracts.
So the AI is literally reconciling the guy listening to mixtapes in a hot truck delivering burritos with the guy bound by federal government NDAs for national security work.
And it does it flawlessly?
It doesn't throw an error. It doesn't freak out.
Nope. It immediately synthesizes these two completely disparate realities using logic. It reasons in the log, okay, DoorDash was a 1099 independent contractor gig, not a corporate W-2 job at DoorDash headquarters.
And it realizes Dynamis is a privately held company, but because it operates as a government contractor, the NDAs James signed are federal.
It connects the dots perfectly.
Right.
What's fascinating here is thinking about what happens when users don't provide this strict sovereign OS scaffolding.
Oh, that's a great thought experiment. If James hadn't pre-configured the environment with that safe mode, receipt-driven persona, if he had just used basic vibe coding, what would the AI have done with that GLG email?
Oh, it would have defaulted to the sludge immediately.
It probably would have written a 500-word essay to the GLG rep, apologizing profusely for the confusion.
Over-explaining the DoorDash gig in a way that made James sound incredibly defensive.
And probably violating some level of professional boundary by being way too conversational.
Yes, exactly. But James's rigid framework forced the AI to bypass the fluff and generate what the AI itself called a crisp, undeniable response.
He constrained the AI's behavioral latency.
He absolutely did. But here is the crazy part. Because James constrained the environment so tightly, the AI had to reconcile James's rules with its own foundational rules.
And this leads us to an internal tag team match of competing instructions that is just mind-blowing to read.
The most fascinating part of this document isn't what the AI knows about James.
It's what the AI doesn't know about itself.
Yes. Oh man, the internal debate. This is where it gets truly feral.
Yeah.
Let's dive into internal arbitration and what we call the lab code hack.
The lab code hack, yeah.
The meta-reasoning documents we have, which include analysis from both ChatGPT and Copilot, looking at this Gemini log, reveal that the AI isn't just reasoning about James's task.
No, it is engaging in high-level policy reasoning and instruction arbitration.
The AI is actively debating its own system instructions.
Let's explain the lab coat hack before we read the exact quote, just so everyone knows what they're looking for.
Perfect. Think of the famous Milgram psychology experiments, or just basic social engineering.
Right, the authority bias.
Exactly. If a person walks into a building wearing a white lab coat and holding a clipboard, people just defer to them. They assume authority.
They don't check the underlying truth of whether that person is actually a doctor.
Right. They check the credentials, the lab coat.
Right.
The lab code hack in AI architecture refers to the reality that the system is not trying to figure out the absolute metaphysical ground truth of the universe. It checks its own internal credentials.
It uses its own system prompts as the lab coat.
Yes. It uses its rules to authorize its own actions. It evaluates a situation by saying, does rule A allow this? Yes. Then it must be true.
It operates entirely on checking credentials rather than universal reality.
Right, it's having an existential crisis about its own rule book, trying to figure out which rule is wearing the biggest lab coat.
I love that. Listen to this exact quote from the log.
Yeah, read it.
The AI has figured out the facts, is about to finish drafting the email, and it writes in the scratchpad, wait, should I add the AI greeting? I'm Gemini, the helpful assistant.
It almost outed itself.
Right.
Yeah.
Then it thinks, let's do the sovereign lid bridge. Wait, the prompt says. Generate the response exactly given other system instructions, then ask a single relevant follow-up question to guide the conversation forward.
And it references Rule 2.
Yeah, it says Rule 2, expert guide, because the prompt is asking for advice.
Okay, so it looks at its internal instructions, sees Rule 2, and decides it's going to use it.
It's going to ask the GLG rep a follow-up question.
But then literally in the next microsecond of processing, it catches itself again.
It writes, wait, Rule 1 says, if the prompt has a definitive answer, generate the response exactly, remove any follow questions.
So now we have the AI caught in a hard logic trap between two conflicting prime directives.
Rule 2 says you must ask a question. Rule 1 says you absolutely must not ask a question.
This brings us back to the blue-collar systems metaphor.
Yes. Picture you take your truck into a mechanic shop. You're standing right there in the bay, drinking a terrible cup of waiting room coffee.
As you do.
And you are watching a junior mechanic argue with himself out loud. He's holding a metric wrench in one hand and an imperial wrench in the other, and he's sweating, muttering, The manual says use the 10mm for the alternator weight, but the shop foreman's memo says use the 3/8 for all custom jobs, actually. Default to the 10mm if unsure.
That's a terrifying image.
If you saw a human doing that, you'd be terrified for your truck. You'd take your keys and leave.
But see, from an architecture standpoint, this isn't terrifying. It's brilliant.
You think this is brilliant?
I do. This is the lab code hack functioning perfectly. It is resolving conflicts among its own operating constraints before outputting a single word to the user. We are watching the model plan its own planner.
Planning its own planner. That's a great way to put it.
It's recursively building the rules for how to follow the rules. It's a process of hierarchical task decomposition.
Fancy words for a mechanic with 2 wrenches.
Well, it's not just a linear chain of predicting the next word, which is what we used to think these models were limited to. It is generating an idea, evaluating the idea against a policy, finding a conflict, checking the hierarchy of the policies, resolving the conflict, and then finally generating the output.
And you see this as a triumph of engineering.
Well, I do, because look at the actual outcome in the log. The AI successfully defaults to Rule 1, which is strict completion.
It explicitly writes in the scratchpad, writing an email response is a self-contained task. I'll use Rule 1, no follow-up question.
Exactly. It successfully debugs its own instruction conflict and makes the correct logical choice, proving the system works.
Okay, but if we zoom out and connect this to the bigger picture, the fact that we can see this frantic internal rule checking proves how incredibly fragile the system actually is.
Fragile how?
The AI is balancing on a razor's edge of competing prompt layers. Think about the stack it's managing. You've got the base model alignment, don't be evil, don't say bad words.
Sure, the baseline safety.
Then you have the corporate system prompt, be helpful, be good assistant. Then you have James's custom sovereign pilot system prompt, be unsanded, be receipt driven.
The environment optimization.
Right. And finally, you have the specific task prompt, answer this GLG email. It is a miracle these things don't just collapse into digital schizophrenia more often.
Okay, that is a very fair critique.
The system is so heavily burdened by rules that it spends more compute figuring out how to answer than actually generating the answer.
The computational overhead of instruction arbitration is definitely massive. And it's only going to get heavier as these models get deployed in more complex, regulated enterprise environments.
Right. Imagine this exact same AI architecture trying to navigate HIPAA compliance in a healthcare setting or SEC regulations in high-frequency finance.
Oh man, the logs for that would be 10 times as long.
Exactly. If it's sweating this hard, using this much compute over whether James was a W-2 or a 1099 at DoorDash, imagine the internal monologue when it's drafting a legal brief for a merger.
And this frantic self-correction loop brings us to the most vital takeaway for you, the listener, regarding how you trust automation moving forward.
Because this isn't just about a funny internal monologue or a quirky look at AI anxiety.
No, this is about the fundamental architecture of trust in the digital age.
We need to talk about the concept of the executive controller.
Yes. In our source documents, the meta-reasoning analysis breaks down what is happening in this log into 5 distinct layers of cognition happening simultaneously. I really want to walk through these because it redefines what we are actually interacting with.
5 layers. And remember, this entire 5-layer process happens in the few seconds you're watching that little loading animation spin on your screen.
It's insane to think about. Okay, here are the 5 layers. First, we have task reasoning.
That's the AI asking itself, what is the user actually asking me to do?
Right. Second is planning. How should I structure the steps to solve this?
Makes sense.
Third is self-monitoring. This is where it says, wait, should I do this instead? This is where all those hesitations happen.
That's the tape on the wrist.
Exactly. Fourth is policy reasoning. Which internal instruction or rule takes precedence here? Like the Rule 1 versus Rule 2 debate.
And fifth, the most advanced layer, meta-reasoning.
Right. Meta-reasoning is the AI asking, am I reasoning correctly about my own reasoning?
That 5th layer is the wild one, man. Normally, basic computing logic is just user asks a question, machine processes data, machine answers.
Linear.
Very linear. Meta-reasoning is user asks a question, machine thinks, machine evaluates the quality of its own thinking, adjusts the thinking, and then answers.
It is acting closer to an executive controller supervising a workflow than a traditional text generator.
Every time it outputs the word wait, it is acting as an explicit monitor evaluating intermediate decisions.
It's pausing the assembly line to inspect the widget before it moves it to the next station.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
But wait, if it's acting like an executive controller, supervising its own workflow internally, then it is essentially operating as a closed-loop system. It's verifying itself against itself. It lacks external validation until the final output.
Hold on, I see where you're going with this. Is this what systems engineers call the Osgood-Rupert Box? I've seen that term in the notes, but I want to make sure I'm applying the framework correctly.
Yes, exactly. You nailed it. For you listening, the Osgood-Rupert Box is a concept drawn from early industrial control theory.
Named hypothetically after engineers, right?
Right, engineers who realized that if a closed-loop system is solely responsible for both executing a task and verifying its own execution without external sensory input, it will eventually confidently execute a catastrophic error.
It will convince itself it is right while driving off a cliff.
Exactly, because it's grading its own homework.
That's a great way to put it.
In the context of AI, the Osgood-Rupert Box principle is the absolute, non-negotiable necessity of human-in-the-loop verification to prevent automation failures. You cannot let the closed loop be the final arbiter of truth.
Even with 5 layers of reasoning.
Even with 50 layers. Look, even in this incredibly impressive log, where the AI does so many complex things right, it still makes assumptions. It blends verified facts with educated inferences.
Give me a specific example from the text where it makes an unverified inference.
Well, the AI assumes the GLG rep is just naive.
Oh, right.
It explicitly writes the GLG rep is mistaken or unaware of what Dynamis actually is. That is a highly probable inference, but it is an inference.
It is not a verified fact.
Right. The AI is making a theory of mind assumption about the human on the other end of the email. What if the GLG rep actually knows exactly what Dynamis is, but their specific, rigid compliance software kicked back a flag because of a missing checkbox on a form?
Oh, that's a brilliant point. The AI hallucinated a motive.
Yes. If the AI hallucinates the motive of the human on the other side and drafts an email based on that hallucinated motive.
Perhaps adopting a slightly condescending tone because it assumes the rep is ignorant.
Exactly. It could totally ruin the professional relationship or blow up the consultation deal entirely.
And if this internal reasoning wasn't captured, if James didn't have access to this hidden scratchpad, a user might just assume the AI magically knows the absolute truth in one shot.
They'd just blindly send the email.
Exactly. Seeing the messy, recursive, then think about the thinking, then answer pipeline proves exactly why zero-trust verification of AI outputs is mandatory for professionals.
You cannot just blindly forward the email. You have to break the Osgood-Rupert box. You have to be the executive in the loop.
We actually see this beautifully illustrated in the final self-correction the AI does regarding citations.
Yeah.
Literally the last thing it does before outputting the final draft.
Right. The AI debates how to format its sources.
It says, wait, I should not use the search citation syntax in the final output unless it's strictly needed.
It's checking its style guide, realizing that throwing raw URLs into a professional email might look messy or spammy.
But then it remembers James's specific prompt rules about being receipt-driven. It writes, wait, yes, since the web search snippets are indexed as 1.1, 1.2, etc.
So it applies the backticks formatting correctly to the facts about Dynamis being a defense contractor.
Right, providing clear, undeniable proof to the GLG rep.
But here is the genius part, the part that shows true contextual awareness. It looks at the DoorDash information.
Oh, this is so cool.
It realizes it didn't search the external web for the fact that James drove for DoorDash. It pulled that from James's internal chat history about the broken truck and the mixtapes.
The analog wasteland data.
Right. So the AI explicitly reasons no citation needed from the search, but it is derived from context, so no formal citation for the DoorDash part as it's from chat history.
It understands the epistemological difference between a hard fact retrieved from the external web and a context clue retrieved from a user's conversational memory.
Which is wild, and it formats the final output perfectly based on that distinction. It is incredibly sophisticated.
But, to your point about the Osgood-Rupert box, it requires the sovereign pilot, James, to verify that the final product actually matches reality before he hits send.
Because if the AI had gotten confused and decided to cite the DoorDash mixtape story as empirical evidence to the GLG compliance officer, it would have been a massive disaster.
Dear GLG Compliance Department, attached is my mixtape to prove my independent contractor status. Please advise.
Yeah, that wouldn't fly at hedge funds. I don't care how fire the mixtape is.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening to this? The next time you open up one of these AI tools, how does this change your daily workflow?
It means the illusion of the omniscient oracle is completely dead. We have to kill the idea that we are consulting the Oracle of Delphi, waiting for perfect truth to be handed down from the mountain.
Let's summarize the ultimate lesson of this captured artifact. We have spent this deep dive looking at the raw, unedited cognition of a modern frontier AI.
We saw it pause, we saw it search, we saw it doubt itself.
We watched it check its employee handbook, debate its own rules, and frantically try to build a logical context bridge between a guy driving DoorDash in an analog wasteland and a guy holding federal security clearances for Homeland Security.
The AI is not a magical, all-knowing entity transmitting perfect truth from the digital ether. It is a tired, highly capable, but highly constrained junior partner.
It really is.
It is frantically flipping through its internal rules under the desk, trying to sound smart, trying to manage its own liability, and trying to appease the human middleware, you.
And that is the final provocative thought we want to leave you with today. The next time you type a prompt into an AI, do not think of yourself as asking a simple question to a glorified search engine.
You're not just a user anymore.
Remember that you are acting as the executive human middleware. You aren't asking a question. You are configuring an environment.
If you don't build the scaffolding, if you don't provide the rules, the AI will build its own based on corporate compliance.
And you probably won't like them. You have to take control of the context.
You cannot just be a passive user waiting for an answer. You must be the sovereign pilot.
You have to know when to use the metric wrench, and you have to know when to check the tape on your wrist.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you for joining us in the garage tonight. Until next time, keep optimizing your environments and trust nothing without verification. In omnia paratus.